Welcome to this explainer. Think about your daily commute for a second. The train rides, the bus trips, just walking down a crowded street. Honestly, it usually all blends together into one big gray blur, right? But what if I told you that one of those utterly forgettable, mundane routines could hold a seriously profound lesson about human connection? Today we're diving into a deeply moving narrative. It's a beautifully documented sequence of events called the Echo of a Kind Seat, and it perfectly captures how a brief, seemingly ordinary subway encounter can ripple out in ways we can barely even comprehend.
It brings up a pretty heavy question. When was the last time a stranger actually changed your life? Usually, strangers are just, background characters in the movie of our daily lives. We pass by them without a second thought. But every once in a while, there is this unexpected moment of impact. A collision of two lives that leaves a permanent mark. Okay, let's dive into this and deconstruct exactly how one of these rare, amazing moments unfolded.
So, let's set the scene. It's 8:47 p.m. A packed subway train is rushing through the concrete arteries of New York City. And I mean packed. The cars are tight, every single seat on this train is taken, and you've got that rhythmic clack, 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 clack of the tracks setting this really fast, unrelenting pace. People are tired. They're commuting. They literally just want to get to where they're going and get off this train.
But at the next station, the doors slide open and the dynamic completely shifts. Picture this. An elderly woman steps onto the train. She's physically weighed down, carrying two really heavy grocery bags. She's looking around, hoping for just a moment of relief, but there isn't a single empty seat. Now, contrast her with the seated passengers. They're locked in total digital isolation, staring silently at their glowing phone screens. A few people noticed her, sure, they glanced up, but almost immediately they looked right back down at their screens. Nobody was making eye contact.
But then, the pattern breaks. A young man decides to act, and his steps are so incredibly simple they almost feel invisible. Step 1, he actually notices the woman. He sees her struggling. Step 2, he quietly takes off his headphones, completely pulling himself out of his own isolated little bubble. And Step 3, he stands up, smiles, and offers her his seat. She thanks him, sits down, and that's it. In the moment, if you were standing right there in that train car, it looked like a perfectly ordinary interaction. Honestly, it was so quiet and unremarkable, it didn't look like anything special at all.
And then, everything changes. Just a few minutes later, the train suddenly, jarringly jolts to a stop. And we aren't at a station. We are deep inside a pitch-black tunnel. The lights above the passengers flicker for a second and then just go out. Imagine being trapped in that metal tube. The routine commute is completely shattered, and this wave of raw panic just begins to ripple through the passengers sitting there in the dark.
Then, a voice crackles over the overhead speakers. "There has been an emergency. Please remain calm." Just sit with that silence for a second. The uncertainty, the tension. The passengers on this train, including that young man and the elderly woman, were now trapped together in that dimly lit car. And they stayed there for nearly an hour. Time just stood completely still before the train finally lurched forward and rolled into the next station.
When those doors finally slid open, the relief was just palpable. As everyone hurriedly pushed toward the exits to leave this whole nightmare behind, this really mysterious interaction took place. The elderly woman reached out, gently touched the young man's shoulder, and handed him a small envelope. She looked at him and said, "You reminded me that kindness still exists. Don't open this until you get home." And before he could even process what was happening, she vanished into the surging crowd.
Later that night, safe at home, the young man finally opens up the envelope. Inside, he finds two things: a single $20 bill and a handwritten note. Now, the young man just smiled at the cash. As our source material points out, the $20 didn't matter to him at all. It was the words written on that piece of paper that carried all the weight.
He unfolds the note, and this is exactly how it begins. 20 years ago, someone gave up their seat for my husband on the day we first met. That small act changed our lives forever. Wow. Now, what's really interesting about this part of the story is the incredible emotional weight embedded in just those two sentences. A mundane act of offering a seat wasn't just a polite gesture to her, it was literally the foundation of her entire romantic history. It was an echo straight from her past.
To truly understand the gravity of this, we've got to look at the immense scale of her life. 50 years. The note revealed that she and her husband were married for 50 years. Half a century of shared memories, morning coffees, inside jokes, and a whole lifetime of love. And it all stemmed from a day marked by a similarly small, incredibly simple act of kindness from a total stranger.
And then the note delivers its absolute emotional climax. She wrote, "Today was the first time I rode this train without him. Thank you for reminding me that the world is still full of good people." That just reveals the completely heartbreaking hidden reality of her journey. She wasn't just tired from carrying groceries, she was carrying the unbearable heavy grief of taking her very first subway ride as a widow. And at her absolute most vulnerable moment, the young man's gesture perfectly echoed the magic of the day she first met her late husband.
So this brings us to a really profound shift. We're zooming out from the micro events of a delayed train to a vital macro lesson. As you read that note, the young man realized something incredibly important. You never know what battles someone is fighting. The unseen emotional weight that strangers carry around with them every single day, it's completely invisible to the naked eye.
Think about the stark duality of that single moment in time. On one hand, you've got the surface-level reality, an ordinary, frustrating, delayed commute inside a dark subway car. People are annoyed, they're looking at their phones, eager to just get home. But on the other hand, occupying that exact same physical space is a profoundly different reality, a grieving widow's first terrifying journey completely alone. Two completely different worlds, sitting mere inches apart on a subway bench.
So the crucial point here is really captured in these three main takeaways from the story. First off, everyone is fighting a battle, even if they just look like a stranger carrying some groceries. Second, kindness costs almost nothing. Taking off a pair of headphones and standing up, that requires absolutely zero financial investment. And third, small acts leave incredibly big impacts. Their power is just vastly disproportionate to the effort it takes to do them.
When you map out this ripple effect through time, the sheer scale of kindness becomes totally undeniable. 20 years ago, a seat is offered to her husband. Then, over a span of 50 years, a beautiful marriage flourishes. And today, an unforgettable memory is created that beautifully bridges the past and the present. One tiny, seemingly insignificant choice sent a ripple effect across decades. It absolutely proves that the smallest kindness doesn't just fade away, it can literally become a memory someone carries for the rest of their entire life.
So I want to leave you with a provocative question to think about. What small decision will you make today? We've just seen how the totally simple act of removing a pair of headphones and giving up a seat can echo through someone's entire existence. As you go about your day, pass by strangers, and ride your own metaphorical subways, consider this. How might your actions today echo in a stranger's life tomorrow? Because the smallest decisions really do leave the biggest impacts. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope you carry this story with you.